Hi, my name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino-American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have the honor and the pleasure today to speak to Stephanie McMillan. Stephanie McMillan is a wonderful artist, a great political cartoonist, a strong activist for environmental and worker issues, and a strong critic of capitalism. She's won the Robert F. Kennedy Award for Journalism for her editorial cartoons. She's won the Sigma Delta Chi Award for editorial cartoons, and she twice won first prize for her editorial cartoons from the Florida Press Club. And she's won various other awards that are too numerous for me to remember. So, so hi, Stephanie.
Well, thanks for having me, Angelo. I really love your cartoons also, and I think they're very sincere and politically sharp. So
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate your work a lot.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. That's sort of one of the reasons I want to talk to you. You're sort of a hero to me and stuff. You've been a role model to me, especially for what a cartoonist activist could be. So I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and also, so I want to start our talk by just talking about your influences. Who are your cartoonist and artist influences?
Well, I think for a lot of people of my generation, Peanuts was kind of
Yeah,
foundational.
yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I was obsessed with Snoopy from, as early as I can remember, all through middle school. Um, I think that from Charles Schulz is where I learned simplicity is a good quality of cartoons, and especially how to evoke expressions through the fewest amount of lines. I really just continue to learn how to do that. I think that he was kind of pioneering in that,
Yeah,
being able to just use one line to make a face angry or upset or happy is just incredible. I don't think anybody's done it quite as well since, or
yeah,
hasn't ever improved upon that kind of simplicity in expression.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
sorry. No, just later on, in my early adult years, I really loved the alternative cartoonists in the small weekly papers that started popping up around the country, especially the Village Voice.
Um,
I loved Linda Berry and Matt Groening,
yeah,
and especially the way that they addressed political issues with humor and sarcasm.
yeah.
So those were a big influence. And
Oh,
I think political artists like from the early Soviet Union, or like George Gross,
yeah.
his sarcasm was incredible. The way he was able to portray the ruling classes with complete, just sharp, vicious sarcasm. It was really inspirational.
Yeah, I love his work. He was very brave too. He
Yeah.
was doing it at the time when when the Nazis came along, he didn't stop.
No, and he eventually had to flee, I believe.
Yeah, he did and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love his work too, from the 20s and 30s and stuff.
Yeah.
And I just
Incredible.
like his courage and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Very
So,
bold.
oh, no, don't worry. I love a lot of old artists and cartoonists too and stuff. So
Oh
yeah.
no, bold. I was saying
Bold.
he was
Oh, bold. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I love his stuff too. So
Yeah.
okay. So you don't do editorial cartoons anymore, right?
No, I don't. After the collapse of newspapers and print media, it got very hard. I mean, I struggled along for a while trying to keep doing it, but I found I really couldn't make a living
Okay.
at
Okay.
that. So,
When you did do your cartoons, though, how did you do them? Did you do pen and paper? Did you mostly do the computer? And what was your schedule when you were doing it?
I did them on paper with pen, and then would scan it into Photoshop to color. And
Okay.
so it was a early version of Photoshop using a mouse and the bucket tool, basically. It wasn't very sophisticated.
Oh, okay, okay. Were you a weekly? I mean, what was your schedule and stuff?
For Code Green, the editorial cartoon about the environment, that was weekly for about 3 to 4 years. And then I did Minimum Security, a comic strip that was 5 days a week for a bunch of years. I think I did that all together for about between 10 and 15 years.
Wow.
So I would draw everything on Monday. And well, actually, first I'd write out all the scripts.
Oh.
And sometimes that would drag into Tuesday because I didn't always get inspired. So it was sometimes a bit like agonizing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Sit
hear that a
there.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious though, for the comic strip, how many weeks in advance from the time you finish it to the time it gets published did you do that?
I think it was 4. I can't quite remember,
Or
but I'm pretty sure it was 4
okay, okay.
that I would
Yeah.
try to keep a batch ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, this leads to my next question. You've done a comic strip, Minimum Security, and I bought an issue. I don't know if you see it and stuff. When you were, yeah, uh, you've done a single panel cartoon, Code Green, right? And you've also done graphic novels. I have this graphic novel of yours about Occupy Wall Street. So you've done three different types of comic media, right? What are the strengths and the weaknesses of each media in conveying your political commentary?
Well, I think comics in general have their main strength is combining words and images because I think that's stronger than just words alone or images alone because you can get across both a complex idea and a simple idea very efficiently, I think. And it, I think, reaches people not just through their logical pathways, but also emotional because of
Yeah,
the image. So I think it sticks better and it can kind of provide almost like how do I want to say it? Like a cohesive thought that then can become integrated into someone's consciousness easier than,
yeah,
let's say, reading an essay or something. You
yeah,
kind of get a concept in a more organic way, in a way, less
yeah.
through logic, more through emotion, but also logical. So I think comics are really powerful.
Mhm.
Um, the limitations of editorial cartoons is the just how hard it is to get wide reach with those anymore, unless you're one of the few staff people in a newspaper, a mainstream paper. But then you're also subject to a lot of editorial control. So that's hard as well.
Yeah,
Um, the editors who did publish my cartoons were really good and allowed me a lot of freedom, but then gradually they were replaced by
uh,
people who weren't as, um, you know,
yeah. So
lax
you get the
about what.
freedom with editorial cartoons, but you don't necessarily get the reach if you're not in a regular paper.
Right. And if you are in a regular paper, then you don't have the freedom
Yeah,
to say
okay.
whatever you want. It has to be more, they'll start telling you like, well, it has to be more local. It has to be more about something that just happened. It has to be more illustrative rather than commentary. It can't
Yeah.
be offensive to anyone. And gradually you start, wondering why you're doing this.
No, I'm curious though. When you have more complex ideas, is the comic strip and the graphic novel better than the single panel editorial cartoon for you? Are you able to stretch out an idea better?
Absolutely, yeah. The graphic novel was the best for that. The one that I did called Resistance to Ecocide was actually a collection of comic strips. So I started doing the comics that I knew would gradually become a graphic novel once the storyline ended. So it was a project of over a couple of years or so,
Uh,
where the story, was every week I would do 5 strips, but I knew they were going to be put together as a
uh.
story. And so then I didn't have to be as funny in each one, which I find very difficult. So it could kind of gradually build on itself, and it wouldn't have to have a resolution at the end of each one.
Uh,
So the graphic novel I found easier because then I could explore topics with a little more complexity.
oh, okay. I'm kind of surprised. I would have assumed that the comic strip would be easier, but I guess it's actually harder and stuff.
Well, for me, it's hard to have a joke at the end of each one. I can be kind of funny, but not that funny all the time, not 5 times a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it's got to have a certain rhythm, like set up, contradiction, punchline that I find very hard to keep continuously producing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so the graphic novel is your favorite form, I guess? Is that your favorite of the three? The single panel, the comic strip, and the graphic novel. Is the graphic novel your favorite, or is it just the one where you have the greatest avenue of like expressing complex ideas?
I think the latter, it was better to express complex ideas, but I also find long form narrative very hard to keep all the characters straight, to keep the storyline straight. I really do like the form of editorial cartoons.
Oh,
Um, I think it just making one point is it's easier for me just to make one simple statement
yeah,
or illustrate one simple concept. So I
yeah.
really like editorial cartoons. I just found it hard to make a living at them. So now some of my art is actually kind of similar to a cartoon, but it's just done with a painting or a drawing.
Oh no, I love it and stuff. Yeah, I've tried, I do mostly single panel just because
Mhm.
the paper I used to do wanted single panel. But whenever I've done multi-panel stuff, I haven't yet, I want to try a graphic novel at some point, but when I've tried multi-panel stuff, I struggle with dialogue and stuff. I'm always like,
Hard.
I wish I was every time I read my dialogue, I keep thinking like, gosh, I wish I could I have a lot of respect for people who do dialogue because I'm not good at it and stuff. So
It's really hard to have it be both natural and just say what it has to say.
yeah.
Like, what the best advice I ever got from an editor was have your comic say only exactly what it really needs to say, and then go through and cut out half the words.
Oh wow. Yeah. So you're trying to keep things as concise as possible.
Yeah, like always thinking about how can I say this in the most direct way possible, most simple way possible, and not like get distracted trying to make 2 or 3 different points in the same comic, which I
Oh,
used to do. I started out that way, trying to say everything because
oh
there's so
yeah.
much to say.
Yeah, but I guess when you do want to say more, that's where the graphic novel or the comic strip comes in and stuff because the single panel, because that I for the most part I've done single panel, but I struggle with nuance in certain issues
Mhm.
because I know certain issues are a lot more complex than my single panel. But when I try to do multi-panel and stuff, my dialogue gets in the way of what I'm trying to get to get
I
at.
totally understand that problem. Yeah, because you're trying to not crowd it with a bunch of ideas that people can't grasp. You want to make it easy, but you also, yeah, don't want to cut out all the nuance and the complexity of what you're trying to say either. You don't want to too much simplify it. That's
Yeah,
a really hard balance. And sometimes I think an editorial cartoon accompanied by text is a real good way to do that. So you
yeah.
can, you know, explain more behind the issue or the context or background of
Oh, okay, cool, cool. I will follow your advice.
it.
Well, I mean that's why I talk to other yeah, I've been doing these cartoonist talks just so I can
uh,
learn and stuff because every cartoonist has different perspectives, different ways of doing things. And I'm sort of like in some, I'm not stealing from you guys, but I'm trying to learn from you guys to help me improve as a cartoonist, but also because I'm kind of a nerd. I'm kind of, I just want to know how my fellow cartoonists do stuff, and just because you know how a nerd is. The nerds just kind of want to know stuff, right, and stuff. So
yeah, I do the same thing. I learn from people all the time. Yeah, not trying not to steal anything, but definitely learning techniques and ways of doing things for sure. That's how we learn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So if my stuff starts looking like yours, I apologize.
not worried. I think you have a very distinctive style, and I also think you're really good at symbolism, and you're good at like conveying something that's complex through a simple symbol. So I think you're really good at that.
Oh, thank you. I try. Okay. Well, I'm curious. Both of us use our comics to criticize capitalism, right? Now, my critique of capitalism was deeply influenced by Charles Dickens and Catholic social teaching. So, for both Charles Dickens and the Catholic Church, they're deeply worried about how capitalism negatively affects social relationships. So, for both Dickens and the Catholic Church, without moral constraints, a system based on maximizing profit and the pursuit of self-interest caters to the worst forms of selfishness and greed. And that kind of toxic environment of selfishness and greed leads to a corresponding callousness to the suffering of the poor. Your cartoons are hyper-focused on capitalism's negative effects on the environment. Why is capitalism so detrimental to the environment? And who are the influences on your critique of capitalism?
Well, capitalism has to grow, always. It's basically, capital is money that's waiting to be invested in something.
Mhm.
And the only reason that people invest it is to have it grow. So it's an inherently destructive economic mechanism. Um, it it generates its own morality, and like you were saying, it generates a very toxic morality and ethical framework. You know, where it rewards selfishness and individualism, greed, acquisitiveness, and I don't know if we can change it through trying to promote different values, although I'm sure it'll help. But what really needs to happen is to change the economic mechanisms of how we get our needs met as a society. You know, if it's through capitalism exploits labor and the environment in order to create surplus value, the value that the form of profit that capitalists reinvest as new capital. So as long as that's the case, they're going to keep doing it. So those two things, the labor force and the environment, are the entities that capital extracts from. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of inevitable. I guess originally my inspiration was Ronald Reagan, because he was
Oh,
threatening to kill everyone through a nuclear war when I
it's
was in
kind of
high school.
ironic.
Yeah. And that made me want
Yeah,
to
I
know
mean, I,
like
I think
why.
I'm, yeah, I wasn't, I was a teen during the Reagan years, and I was,
Mhm.
I was sort of, I grew out of his kind of conservatism. I was kind of a backlash to my politics was was, is that right? Is your politics, your political views sort of a backlash to Reagan?
Yeah, and what he was trying to do in terms of the Cold War.
Yeah,
And and then it led me to question, what can we do to stop that threat?
yeah,
And that led me into the rabbit hole of like, why is that threat existing? And it's because of capitalism, imperialism, and then having to learn about all that. At first, I started out with working with, liberal anti-war groups in locally, but I was never really satisfied with the answers that they could provide about that. I would ask what we could do, and they would say, "Well, write a letter to your congressperson, or a letter to the editor of the newspaper, or sign a petition or something." And it just seemed like a bigger problem than that. That couldn't really solve it. And
yeah.
at one of these activities that they had, this friend of mine came with me, and he got bored, and he went outside, and he came back, and he goes, there's this guy in a purple hat talking about revolution. Let's go listen.
Oh. I guess
So
boredom
that,
leads to a lot of insight.
yeah, yeah, you go searching for something else and then you find something else.
Yeah,
And yeah, so that person was a communist who was trying to, you know, teach people that this problem is capitalism and it needs a bigger solution than just writing letters to the editor. You know,
yeah,
that we needed to unite and have a revolution to overturn capitalism, which I still believe. You know, I have not working with a group in the last few years, and I don't work with that. I haven't worked with that group in many years, but I still believe that, you know, just any kind of research or reading will get you there. And I think more people recognize that now too than they did then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think my critique of capitalism is as in depth as yours. But mine was influenced more. I think what attracted me to Catholic social teaching and Dickens is their ethical. What are the ethical dilemmas that capitalism brings to a society and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
what is the why does in that the culture that you're talking about of greed and individualism, how it breaks up the social fabric of communities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when you start seeing people as commodities, you dehumanize them, and you're able to exploit them without caring and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's sort of a concern of mine and stuff. When I say I was influenced by Catholics, I'm not a Catholic anymore, but I was influenced by the progressive side of Catholicism. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
really a fan of the conservative side of Catholicism and stuff, but the progressive side has had, I have a love-hate relationship with the Catholic Church, but it was an amicable divorce. I, it was not an antagonist. I have fond feelings for the progressive side of Catholicism and stuff. So,
Yeah, they were very strong in a lot of movements like Central America and stuff for
yeah,
liberation. Yeah, there was the
yeah,
Catholic worker movement here.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
if they're still around, but
yeah. I'm a
they
big fan of Dorothy Day, so. Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. Oh, you know about them then. Okay.
a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah, yeah. But there you know what anarchism is? Catholic anarchism? Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, it's anarchism but with a Catholic twist and stuff. That was
Oh,
Dorothy Day and stuff. She was
interesting.
um yeah, I don't know if there's a better way of describing it, than that. But yeah, but she wanted to she was fairly progressive, but she was in the sort of anarchist side. But she had a lot of communist friends and stuff. And during the blacklist, she was brave enough to in her Catholic worker newspaper to defend her communist friends when they were being blacklisted by McCarthy and stuff. Now,
Wow,
that got her in a lot of trouble with communists or the conservative Catholic hierarchy and stuff.
I bet it did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, that's cool. That's cool and stuff.
Well, I
So,
think communists and anarchists have a lot in common. The end result of a classless society without a state is what we're all going for. I think the path is different, and I know that communists have a lot to answer for historically.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but I think I mean I hope that there could be increasing unity among those different trends.
yeah, yeah. Well, the Catholic Church, I think with them, I think one of the issues with them is that there's very weak checks and balances to their power. So
Mhm.
like, I always think the Catholic Church is at its best when it's at the periphery of society, helping
Mm,
the poor and the margin. It's at Catholic Church is at its worst when it has a lot of power and it's trying to impose its values on people. So like it's because of its lack of check and it's very easy to get corrupted. So like the priest pedophilia, the cover up of
mhm,
that for decades,
mhm.
that's a big example of how the Catholic Church power can corrupt the Catholic Church and stuff. So
That
yeah,
seems to be kind of universal among institutions. The more power they have, the worse they are.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think most it's they tend to be at most things that want to help people, they're at their best when they're at the periphery, not when
Mhm.
they're not when they have a lot of power and stuff. I think you're right. I didn't think about that, but I guess I was thinking just in terms of the Catholic Church, but I guess you can any institution that originally wanted to help people, when it gets a lot of power and stuff, it gets corrupted.
I guess the only exception I would put to that is any workers' organization, like a
Oh,
genuine working class organization, that them having power is the only way away from capitalism. So
yeah, yeah. I guess, well, I come from, I have experience. I was in SEIU, the union and stuff.
mhm,
And they always tell me when unions are small, they're at their best. But when you
mhm,
become something like because there are some conservative unions and stuff.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah, and stuff. So,
yeah.
oh, okay. Well, speaking of which and stuff, um, um, you, wait, okay. When I've done research on the Philippines, I learned that indigenous rights are deeply connected to the protection of the environment and stuff. You've done blogs, right? Um, um, and essays talking about the importance of supporting indigenous people in protecting their lands, right? For you, why is it important to support the fight for indigenous rights?
Well, I think land back is a really important movement because
Oh, what's
so
land back?
far
What's
land
land back?
back
Yeah,
it's a increasingly popular movement to bring land back under the stewardship of indigenous people. Um, and yeah, I encourage everybody to look it up and read about it. It's indigenous people have been the only indigenous societies have been the only ones who have actually been able to live for long periods of time on land without destroying it.
yeah,
So I think there's a lot to learn there. And uh, personally, I'm the descendant of settlers who came from Europe, and um, that was part of an imperialist project.
yeah,
Genocidal, dispossessing indigenous populations, and now here we are, and we've destroyed everything, um,
yeah,
putting the entire, web of life at risk, uh, tearing it apart. So the culture that I come from didn't do so well, and
yeah,
it doesn't really have the answers. And I don't even know if it's possible to re-indigenize, for people who have grown up through settler structures. Can we actually have a healthy relationship with the land? I don't know. I'm trying to explore that some,
yeah.
but definitely we can see that indigenous people did have a healthy relationship. So I think that's where we have to look for learning how to overcome the problems we're facing.
Yeah, I notice when I talk to Filipino activists and when I
Mhm.
research and stuff, they tell me that it's the indigenous people in the Philippines who are fighting the mining companies because the mining companies are despoiling the land. They're fighting deforestation and stuff there because it floods their land, it makes their land vulnerable to flooding and stuff, and the mining pollutes their rivers and stuff, so they can't drink anymore and stuff. So, um, but I didn't learn about that until I started studying it and stuff, and started talking to activists. For them, it's obvious, but for me, it took me a while to get it. You know, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're indoctrinated and conditioned not to see that.
Yeah, yeah, and stuff. But I knew that they were being exploited and stuff, but I didn't get the connection on how important they were to protecting the environment until, it took me a while and stuff. But it didn't catch, well, if they're fighting mining companies and stuff, that also means they must be protecting the environment. For whatever reason, it took me a while to get that.
I think there's a worldview that we lost, at a certain point, that sees the world as alive. And if we don't regain that, I think we're kind of lost, because as long as we're looking at the world and seeing resources and objects,
Yeah.
then we're going to exploit those, they're things to us instead of beings. If we're able to look at the world and see beings, it's a whole different story. You have to then think about what you're doing to others, and
Yeah.
not seeing
Okay.
them. Yeah, I think that's a really important, that's kind of what I'm addressing with my artwork now,
Yeah.
is connecting with different forms of life in a
Yeah.
way.
You know, what you're saying gets me thinking. I live in the suburbs, but I notice that they're trying to build paths and creeks that go to the bay and stuff. And so I frequently ride my bike to the bay, and as a suburban kid, the only wildlife I ever saw was a squirrel, right? But going in the creek and stuff, and kind of jogging sometimes, I see egrets, I see ducks, I
Mhm.
see fish that are coming back because of they're cleaning up the bay, so some of the wildlife is coming back.
Nice.
In downtown San Jose, you hear about beavers starting to come back and stuff, and I always think. And I think bald eagles are starting to come back in the Bay now that the Bay Area is a little cleaner and stuff. But I think you're right. Unless you're actually there, you don't get a sense of the planet as living. Are you near? Do you go on hikes? Or are you near like a nature?
There are little pockets of, um, pieces of land that have been not built on around here, but mostly it's just a city that's growing, catastrophically.
Yeah.
I live in Fort Lauderdale, and
Oh,
the development here is just out of control. So there's constantly trees being cut down, and then try to point out, like, that's not to mention the tree's life, but then all the other lives that are bound up with that tree. All the insects, all the birds,
yeah.
whoever's living in that tree or depending on that tree are also affected. And it's very hard because like, you can find people who care about that, but they're kind of isolated from each other, few and far between.
Oh,
And then the strength of the developers is so appalling, just the amount of money they have and the amount of political power they have.
yeah.
They just
There's a
build
similar issue. Yeah.
whatever they want. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
there's a similar issue with that in here and stuff, but it's not. I don't think of it in terms of. I never thought of it in terms of the environment, but in terms of wage theft.
Mm-hmm.
How
That's
they're
true.
yeah, how they're exploiting workers by not paying them and stuff. I didn't realize, but that's an issue actually here in the where uh, some activists are trying to make sure that workers just get paid, for
Yeah.
their work and stuff, and from these because there's such a so many people are coming here, and there's such a rush to build high places for people to live and stuff that some companies are cutting corners or not paying their workers and stuff. So
All
yeah,
these issues are very related. Yeah, because those same capitalists who are willing to exploit land are willing to exploit people and extract profits from them at the highest level possible. And also, um, they don't care about affordable housing either. So they're going to try to get as much profit as possible from whatever they build. They're going to build luxury high rises instead
yeah,
of housing that people actually need,
yeah,
driving up the rents everywhere. And so all these issues are very connected.
yeah. It's almost like you live in the Bay Area right now. You just- yeah.
I think it's happening in so many places.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess in California, I'm sort of yeah, I don't know how much of the issues in the Bay Area translate in other parts of the country, but I guess they do and stuff. So.
It's all capitalism.
Okay. You did a wonderful graphic novel about Occupy Wall Street, which I have right here and stuff, and I loved it and stuff. But what I liked about it is you gave a very honest and nuanced analysis of Occupy Wall Street. And I'm wondering, it's been 10 years now since Occupy Wall Street. Um, looking back on it now, do you have any new insights on your experiences in Occupy Wall Street that you may not have thought of back then?
Um, I don't know about new insights. I think of it as something pretty amazing that happened.
Yeah.
Uh, and, it was not organized enough to stay active. I mean, the state is very strong and ruthless, and they found ways to crush it. But I just really like the fact that it existed, and it just shows me that that potential is always there. That there's outrage simmering under the surface all the time, and it comes out in all these different ways, and different movements happen. And this one was very broad and very general, and I think that could happen again, and it really needs to.
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah. How
yeah.
about you?
Well, I went in our local area, there was an Occupy San Jose. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would occasionally go there and take pictures and bring food and stuff. And
Nice.
it was nice and stuff. There was a small group of people who just encamped there, but then there was so it was a small group of people who camped there. But then it was not like Occupy Wall Street, because in Occupy Wall Street it seemed like there was a large group of people who stayed there for a long time, right? Whereas in the San Jose one, there was a small group of people, but then there was a lot of people that would come and go to show their support. And like, oh, you guys need groceries? We'll give you some. So I did that once in a while. I would shop for like some basics and just bring it to them and stuff. But I mostly just did photographs and just talked to them. And it was I don't know if it was the same experience as you had, because it was more there wasn't that settled group. There was only a small group of settled people.
Yeah, I don't even think the actual being there all the time was that as significant as just all the different activities that were generated around that.
Yeah,
Like in Fort Lauderdale, we had a lot of meetings and discussions, and just bringing the fact that people came together to discuss like what's wrong with this society and how can we change it. That alone, I think, is was fantastic, and I just would love to see that happen again. It doesn't really have to be people intense so much as just the assemblies were really great. Even if they were frustrating, because people with
yeah,
those large size groups, it's hard to come to agreement on anything, but just to get all the stuff out, and into
yeah,
the circulating conversation was really good.
yeah. I got that sense of frustration reading your book.
Yeah. Yeah, just
But yeah, I
people
also got the sense that,
hard.
yeah, you also, I remember you writing in the book that this is something you've been waiting for your entire life, right? Yeah, yeah,
That's what it felt like at the time, and when it started, I really thought it was going to go a lot further. But even just looking back and seeing how far it did come, that's pretty heartening, just to know that that's possible, that people, it's not just even around this country, but around the world, can come together and on some common issues and try to figure out how are we going to transform society in the interests of the people and the
yeah.
planet. That's pretty incredible.
Do you see echoes of that still, or?
Well, I mean, the different movements that have happened around specific issues, around like police murder and abortion rights and stuff like that, it's great to see a lot of activity around those things. Also around unionizing workplaces, there's been a lot of incredible activity and organizing going on. But, it hasn't been quite the same of like, we have to change everything, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So although those elements are always there, because every issue ties into every other issue, and a lot of people who participate in this single issue movements do it from a perspective of understanding how that fits into a whole systemic problem.
Yeah, yeah. I think because I've been focused a lot on the issues of the Philippines and stuff and the Filipino American community, I sometimes I do attend a lot of protests and stuff, but you know, you know, in order not to get overwhelmed, I think sometimes you focus on a few issues just so you know, because I struggle with anxiety and stuff and too, and I'm always like, I, there's only so much I can handle.
Yeah, we want to do it all, but yeah, we have to recognize our limitations as individual humans.
Yeah. But you know, for me that's helpful and stuff just to stay sane and stuff. And also you know, I'm none of them older and stuff. You know, like I'm taking care of my father and my mother-in-law and stuff. I have to I don't have the emotional energy to focus on as many stuff as I did when I was younger and stuff. And so I have to be more selective about the issues that I you know that I want to focus on and stuff just because yeah, I get tired.
That happens when we get older, right? Like when I was young too, I threw myself into activism as a way of life. Like that's all I focused on. That's all I did, you know. And all I did for, you know, work was just to keep myself going enough to be able to do more
Yeah.
um, political stuff, activism. But yeah, when you get older, I didn't really think it would happen, but you get tired and you get like, oh my God, I don't know if I can keep it up
Yeah.
anymore. Like, I feel like it's time for me to step aside and let the younger generation go, because also it's that one thing I noticed is that my generation had a certain way of being active that
Yeah.
I think people have evolved away from, you know, they've evolved further than what we were able to do. You know, there was
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
I
I
think
wanted
people
to
are
ask you
better.
about that. You know,
Yeah.
I was debating. Do you sometimes feel like an old leftist? You know, like I sometimes feel like you know, like when I was in my 20s and 30s, you know, like the issues that were important, I had social connections to help me learn. So, okay, LGBTQ issues were in the forefront. I had gay and lesbian friends, close friends. You know, when you have close friends, you can ask them about stuff. You know, or my sister-in-law was an immigration lawyer. So when the immigration law was a big issue and stuff, I can ask her, I don't understand this. Why is this as important as, you know, I had the social circle where I can ask questions of people when I didn't know something. But now I kind of feel like I'm catching up on things that I'm no longer up to date on, like the transgender issue. I think it's an important issue and I support transgender rights, but I in my life, I think I've only known one transgender person and stuff, and I wasn't close friends with that person. So you know, when an issue pops up on transgender issues, I don't have anybody I can ask anymore and say, why is this important and stuff. You kind of I feel like a creaky old leftist and stuff. I don't know if do you feel that way sometimes or
Well, I feel like the ways I've been trained is creaky old leftism, but I feel like I try to learn, you know, and evolve along with the younger generation. I actually read a lot of conversations on Instagram, and I find a
oh
lot
okay.
of really interesting and forward-looking conversations there among active younger people
Yeah.
who have taught me a lot. I've learned so much from just, you know, the arguments and the discussions that
Yeah,
happen.
I need that too. I need to hear,
Mhm.
you know, like when people disagree, I need to hear the, you know, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this arguments. Like my niece, when I hear listen to my niece, she knows a lot about certain issues that she's, you know, she's in her early 20s. When I'm around her, that's when I start feeling like an old creaky. Like sometimes I'm wondering, what is she talking about? You know, and I have to like I have to I have to learn. Yeah, I feel like an out of date leftist. You know, which but that makes me admire somebody like Pete Seeger, you know, or like some of the older leftists who stayed active their entire lives and stuff like Pete Seeger, Dorothy Day. But see, I'm citing old leftists. Those are my heroes are older I don't really know, like I respect certain, younger leftists. I just feel like I'm catching up instead of, I don't feel like I'm I don't, I feel old,
Well, the world keeps moving on. Yeah, we have to struggle to keep up. I was going to say something and now I forgot what it was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, it's okay, not your fault. It's just, senior moment, I guess.
Yeah.
But
No, but you're younger than me though, right?
I don't think so. I think you're younger than me. I'm,
No,
I'm
I'm in my 50s.
Me too. I'm 58.
56. Okay, okay.
Okay. Aha. I win.
Okay. No, I mean, okay, do you remember what you were going to say or?
Well, just that it's a fine line between struggling to be a useful elder to maybe help share experiences that we've had that could be useful for the younger generation. And then on the other hand, going too far and trying to impose the way that we think on people that have moved on beyond that, and also keep learning in the process. It's like a juggling act, because there's a lot to learn from the younger generation, and it's usually young adults who are the ones who are the most active and in social change, because they've just become outraged. They've just started seeing the connections between things and can't tolerate it. Whereas older people usually, they're like used to it. They've like surrendered or like resigned themselves to things. Not that we have, but that's what the tendency is.
Yeah.
So, we have to just keep trying to be fresh and keep up while also trying to remain useful in the sense of like we've also done a lot of things that maybe people could learn from.
Yeah, I just think that my framework is, I'm a bookworm and stuff. A lot of what I learned is just from reading books and biographies. So I'm still in that framework of like Bayard Rustin, Martin Luther King, where you tried to build a multiracial coalition of working class whites and minorities and stuff. And but in the Trump era, I wonder if that's outdated now because so many working class whites have become Trumpist and stuff. But I always hold on to that hope for that. If you want, to try, there are common economic interests with the working class whites and minorities that the Poor People's March tried to appeal to. So that's an old socialist or even an old liberal idea of building those multiracial coalitions. And I don't know if that's still relevant or if that's outdated and stuff. So
Well, I still think the working class interests are diametrically opposed to capitalism. So the more unity that we can build in the working class, the more important and the stronger it will be against capitalism. But some of these other issues do have to become part of that and integrate within that. We are living in a really complex time where a lot of people's politics are against their own economic interests. So having to deal with that is it's extremely difficult and not pleasant. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's that. Yeah, it's just whenever I refer to people, oh, Bayard Rustin, Martin Luther King, or, weren't those guys from the 40 or 50 years ago? And I think, oh, you're right. Yeah, and I keep thinking I can't really I don't know any names of today, but I can tell you names from 40 or 50 years, like Pete Seeger. I love Pete Seeger and stuff, but he died what, a decade ago and stuff, So most of my figures that I admire now are in their 70s and 80s and stuff. So I think
Well,
I
people
should be
throughout
put out to
history.
pasture.
Oh, no. I mean, there have been people throughout history who we can still learn things from. So it doesn't matter when, there are some things that still hold true as long as class society exists, people who have figured out ways of fighting it or approaches that we can learn from.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for making me still feel relevant.
You definitely are, and your cartoons are too. And your cartoons are very forward-looking, I think.
Oh, okay. That's what I always try to fool myself into thinking.
No, it's true.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I have a question. You talked a little bit how you transitioned from doing cartooning to painting and drawing, right? And you mentioned because newspapers or when newspapers begin dying out, you could no longer make a living doing your cartoons. That's why you made your transition, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of unbelievable to think that being an artist is like a step closer to economic stability than being a cartoonist, but it did feel that way for me.
Yeah, I never
And
thought of it that way, but I guess you're right. That's kind of odd, right?
it is
Well, that
odd.
tells you how bad. Yeah, I've done these talks, right? Yeah, there's a lot of worry about the future of at least I don't know about comic strips, but at least editorial cartooning. There's a big worry
Mhm.
it may not last and stuff as a profession.
Yeah, well, it certainly shrunk a lot. I mean, and I don't know what's going to happen with AI now for any kind of creative endeavor, but who knows?
Oh, I didn't
Um,
even think of that. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
yeah,
See, that's
I
why
think.
I'm so old. I'm creepy. I don't think of stuff like that.
Oh, I'm sorry if it brings up anxiety that you didn't have before. Let's forget we said anything.
That's okay. That's okay.
Nothing's going to happen.
No, no, I'm curious. Do you love the painting and drawing? How's that been in terms of like as an alternative artistic venue for your political commentary, just as an artistic outlet?
I do love it. I've always loved it. Ever since I was a kid, I loved painting and drawing. And I think
Okay.
I focused on editorial cartoons and comic strips mainly because I wanted to express political messages in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
And now that I'm stepping aside a little bit for the younger generation to lead, um, I can indulge in like a little bit more indirect forms of
Oh,
messaging. Although there's still a lot of message in there and it's still a lot of intent in there, I also am giving myself a little room to play around with the different mediums and just enjoy the process more.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And I
Are
really do
you?
love it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite media right now? Like painting? You do a lot of stuff at pastels and stuff, and you've done do you do lithography or do you do
Never tried that.
okay,
No,
yeah, I've never tried it either and stuff. I'm just curious and stuff
it
because
looks hard.
yeah, yeah, but Joe's gross. Did he do lithography? I
I
think.
think so. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, but what's your favorite media right now?
I like mixing ink, watercolor, and uh, wax pastels and color pencils on
Oh,
textured watercolor paper and just messing around with the different colors and mediums and textures. It's
oh, okay.
been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a tight artist in that I do a sketch and then after I do a sketch I trace it onto a are you more do you do preliminaries or are you more ad lib? Do you improvise your art or do you do preliminary drawings first?
Well, I have noticed that you're very meticulous and systematic in the way you do those.
Yeah.
And they end up looking very precise and great.
Yeah.
Personally, I started out a little more that way, like precise, and I'm trying to get away from that. And because I really love art that's just very sketchy and loose. And
Uh-huh.
I also love making it, but I have so many hangups, I guess, that it's hard to like loosen up.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
Okay.
when I can tell myself like this is just practice and it doesn't matter, that's when I do, I think, my best work.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a watercolor you did just recently, a week or two ago. Did you post it on Facebook? This is not my normal style, but it was kind of loose. I liked it.
That was the one that was inspired by the feather, I think. I found this feather
Oh
from
yeah.
a red-tailed hawk. And I
Oh
was I try to like think about the meanings of things. So I'm like, why did I find this feather? And then the hawk, I saw it up there and it was sitting in the tree. They were sitting in a tree. I shouldn't use objectifying language. So they were sitting in the tree, and suddenly flew away. And I just
Oh,
heard in my mind, like, if you don't let go of the branch, you can't fly.
oh,
So
oh, okay.
that painting came out of that feather and
Oh,
that hawk.
oh, okay, okay. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you should do more stuff like that. Yeah, that's
I
cool.
want to, yeah. I'm gonna try. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure. I
oh,
it's like a balance too of like, what do I have to do to make money and live? And then what do I do just to experiment and have fun? It's like a also constant tension. Because I'm
yeah.
working on this job right now that it's very meticulous.
Oh,
So when
okay.
I take a break from that, then I can do the more fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I look at you. I was saying to Ed Hall. You know Ed Hall and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. He's great.
Ed Hall, Eric Garcia. You're three cartoonists who also do fine art and stuff.
Oh,
That's kind of what I want to do in my life. Is I want to do cartoons, but I want to do fine arts too and stuff. And I look at you three, and I'm closely listening to what you three do because I kind of want to emulate that in my own life too. Is because being in a gallery, being able to earn at least some money from my art so that I can at least pay for my art supplies.
yeah. Well, it seems like you're doing it, right?
Kinda and stuff. I'm beginning. It's just that I'm spending a lot of time caring for my mother-in-law and my dad and stuff, and so actually caregiving is my primary thing I'm doing right now. But at some point, I'm trying to start up doing more art too and stuff. But I look at you, so like I'm listening to you now, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to remember this, Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's hard to be a caregiver. That's what takes a lot of energy. So, yeah, you have to be kind to yourself and not have too high expectations, but also give yourself time when you can to just play around with art. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which reminds me, I read online you and your partner formed the Arts and Crafts Social Club that does teaching and it also does other art activities. Can you tell me about this club and tell me what do you like about teaching?
Well, that was something that we did for a few years, but we don't do it anymore. It was,
You know? Oh, okay.
yeah, I had inherited a little bit of money from a friend of mine who passed away. And with that, I opened this art studio with my boyfriend, Chris.
Oh, okay.
And he's a truck driver, so he worked all day, but then he would come in the evenings and weekends to do this with me. And
Oh,
my fantasy was that I would spend a lot of time making my own art in there, and then I would teach the occasional class like a few times a week to pay the rent and make a living from.
yeah.
But what it ended up happening was the rent kept getting higher, and we weren't able to make enough money with just a few classes. So we had to constantly try to have like bigger classes. And so we had to make them more exciting. So they would have to
Oh,
be late at night with loud music and black light painting. And like it became really exhausting.
yeah.
So we had like paint and sip sessions, every weekend day, and often, during the week. It was hard. And the rent just kept going higher and higher. And we ended up, and then COVID happened. So, we closed it. But every time I would catch up with the expenses, the landlords raised the rent.
Uh,
So it was very hard. And I never want to try anything like that again.
Was there anything you liked about it though? Was the actual? I guess the reason I'm asking is because some people have asked me to teach, and I haven't decided yet whether I want to or not and stuff because I never taught anything before and stuff. And I was
Oh,
wondering, it sounds like to you the bad experience for you was just was the rents, but was the good experience the being in class and teaching?
it's a mixed bag for me. I really love when people click with a class and they like it opens a door for them, and they're able to then like go on and use those skills and become creative more, you know, like bring that more into their lives. That's really fun and great and gratifying.
Okay.
But I also am kind of a perfectionist, so I would always worry, like, am I teaching it the right way? Am I teaching it enough? So it would cause a lot of like tension in my life also. So I don't think I'm the best teacher, but one thing I would say is useful to do is just try it with a couple people for free, you know, like don't charge them, and just ask them to evaluate how you're doing or how the class
Oh,
is.
that's
And
a good
then
idea.
that's what I did. Yeah, like the first time I taught a painting class, I just asked my relatives and friends to come, and I tried it with them, and they, you know, gave me good feedback about like what needed to be improved, and you
Yeah,
know, how they liked it and stuff. And I did the same with a drawing class. You know,
yeah,
first invited a few people to do it for free as long as they gave me feedback, you know, and then that worked out.
yeah.
So you might really like it. It's good to try.
Yeah, yeah, because I think yeah, the offer for teaching they would pay me, but if I turned out to be a lousy teacher, I'd feel terrible if I was getting paid for doing something I was terrible at and stuff. So that's my big fear is I don't know how I'd be as a teacher and stuff. But if I turned out to be great, then yeah, I'd love to have the money. But if I turned out to be lousy at it, I'd feel like I'm stealing money and stuff, you know?
Maybe the
Yeah.
first couple of times, ask them to be truly honest with you. And you could say payments optional based on how you liked the class
Yeah, yeah.
or
If they turn
something
out
like
doing
that.
masterpieces that sell more than me, you know, yeah, I do want you to pay.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth trying. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sure. I'll try it and stuff and see. But hopefully, that was a year ago and stuff. So hopefully, the offer still stands. But you know, they're nice people and stuff. You know, and they're friends and stuff. So if you know, well, I'll see. It's just, you know how the COVID changed everything, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah. So
But
yeah,
it's also a nice way to connect with people too. I think people are looking for ways to like do things in groups now, you know, more because after having been so isolated, people are lonely.
yeah, but yeah, and that's also true for being an artist. I
Mhm.
always there's a myth about artists being this lonely geniuses that paint and you know and they're you know kind of grumpy and stuff. I always think it's at least from my experience, I love being in a community of artists. You know,
Yeah.
listening, having artists talk about their stuff and the excitement of seeing them hang their stuff in a coffee shop and having people like their work and stuff. Yeah, because that invigorates me. I'm not a I think for me and stuff, being the lone artist and stuff, I'm not as creative as being a lone artist. It actually inspires me being around other people who are doing stuff and exciting stuff.
Also, your work is a lot about people doing stuff. So if you're not around people doing stuff, how would you get inspired? Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's
makes
true.
sense. If that's your subject matter,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
relationships and things, you know.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, you do a thing where you do a print of your art and you drop it in random places for people to pick up and stuff.
Yes.
I think that's great. That was a great idea. How did you think
Thanks.
of that idea, and what have been people's responses?
Um, well, I was trying to think about how I was thinking about how galleries are often intimidating places, or people think they're going to be boring, so they don't go there, and how, you know, art could be more integrated with daily life. Um, and I've known a couple of people who have done similar things. I have this friend Colleen who used to hide painted tiles that she made around town, and then she would post where to find them, and people really loved looking for them and finding them, and
No.
it just seemed great. And then I've seen other people on Instagram doing similar things, so I thought, you know, I'll try that and see what happens, and it's been great. Like people have often the art will just disappear and I won't know where it went, but sometimes people will contact me and tell me, you know, oh, I drove all the way from this place to that place to find your art, and it was there, and I was so happy to find it.
Oh, okay.
Or somebody might come in to where I left it, at a place inside, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm just here to get the art. I don't really want to be here for any other reason. I came for the art." And that's pretty cool to hear,
Yeah, yeah.
So I like the surprise element of it. Maybe it'll brighten someone's day or make them happy for a minute, or feel like, things aren't just homogenous and boring, that there are people out there trying to make life a little more interesting. I don't know.
No, I love that idea. I love that idea. So, oh, okay. Well, you won't believe it, but we only have 8 minutes left for this meeting.
Oh, it's gone so
So,
fast. It's been nice talking with you.
oh yeah, sure. But I have one
Yeah.
more question, and it's
Okay.
just this. Okay, for my last question, what do you love about art and activism?
The fact that both are creative endeavors and you don't know what's going to happen. So anything is potentially possible in those. I think that both share that quality. What about you? What do you love about those things?
Oh, I never thought of activism as being a creative thing, but I guess it is. I guess.
Yeah.
But I've always thought of activism in terms of well, actually, until recently, when I discovered artist activists, like you and stuff, or like a lot of activist poets, where they combine their poetry with activism. So like Langston Hughes, or uh, Muriel Rukeyser or something and stuff. I noticed that it's fulfilling. It's using art to for a social purpose and stuff. For the good of society. I sometimes, when I do my fine art, I try to I'm in, I try not to make it as political and stuff, because I can only be in politics for so long and stuff before I get tired. you know,
I get
yeah,
it.
but I think for activism, just the sense that I was instilled in a young age that we should do something to make the world better, right? And I
Mhm.
think activism, and my heroes were always like the civil rights movement, Dorothy Day and the Catholic worker. Um, um, I love history and the feminists, the LGBTQ act. They've all, the civil rights workers, anti-war activists. They've all made this world a better place. You know, and also, but with art and stuff, I just always loved art and stuff. From Peanuts to murals, paintings. I love, you know, I do, I care for my in-law and my dad, but I make sure I have time. Actually, I do have quite a bit of time um, to paint and draw and stuff. I just have to stop wasting my time looking at Facebook all the time and stuff. you know. But
Yes.
because my mother-in-law is actually pretty. She's a wonderful company and stuff, and my dad, he gets grumpy once in a while, but he's not bad and stuff. Once I do the household chores and stuff, I have time and stuff. But yeah, but I think it's just that I just love art. I love to paint. There's a lot like lithography. I've never tried it, but I want to try it and stuff. When I did my murals and stuff. I love doing murals. I recommend you do murals and stuff, because I think murals would be great. Have you ever done a mural or?
One or two small ones, but nothing's. It's not something I really tried to pursue.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I could get up on the ladder, but maybe I could design one.
You can rent scaffolds.
Okay.
Yeah. You were mentioning to me, you were thinking of doing a utility box and stuff. That would be, you don't have to be in a ladder and stuff. It's
That's
relatively small, but it's in the public.
Yes, and I also I'm going to be painting a restaurant bathroom at some point soon in Gainesville, Florida. My cousin's opening a restaurant.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it'll
okay.
be great. Just have to
Yeah.
get up there.
Yeah, when I find when I've done murals and like when I did my murals and stuff, I got the chance to talk to the janitor.
Mhm.
And and the janitor, she was so happy to talk to me that she brought her children to
Oh,
see me painting the mural. And then when I did my utility box, pedestrians would come by and just, give me a good word. Or people would drive in their cars and they'd honk their horns at me and as in support. And some people even, hey, are you thirsty? Want some drink? Or are you hungry? You want me to get you some food? Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So a lot of the doing that stuff is just the interaction with the public and stuff.
Yeah, connecting in your community.
Yeah, yeah. Although, I mean, if you're doing the bathroom one, I don't know if
That
people
would
would want
be
to interact with you. Now that I think about it. Okay. Well, we'll have a wonderful time doing that and stuff. So,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank
So, okay. So I think this will end our video part of our talk for now and stuff. But thank you very much and stuff. And I wish you well. And um, yeah, um, have a good time. And there's 3 minutes left and stuff. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to add or?
Well, just to say thank you for this great conversation, and I wish you well also, and I hope you have some time to make your art, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you very much.